Hello, friends. Whoa, I am Chevy. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I'm fantastic. And apparently I'm 13. Why is my voice cracking? Um, oh, yeah. So, where was I at? Yesterday I talked about, I don't remember the title of yesterday's video. Something like, I was talking about how resting, sometimes doing small projects that have wins or have payoffs is a way of resting, right? Even mental projects. That's kind of where the gist of it was coming from. It was based on a comment by Jonathan that I had initially posited, or I had re-quoted a quote that said that people who rest or people who work with their minds must rest with their hands. The idea being that if you spend all day thinking, your rest period should be, maybe digging a ditch or working in the garden or whatever. And Jonathan talked about how that doesn't really apply to him because he likes to also rest with his mind by doing puzzles or playing board games or whatever. I and so I kind of keyed in on part of Jonathan's conversation there about how yes, doing puzzles and things of that nature are a form of rest for me as well because it gives you those little wins. It gives you those little moments of completion that maybe my job doesn't give me because sometimes the tasks that I'm working on are multiple day tasks and I don't get that completion point throughout my day that is a reward, for me personally. So our friend Pocket 83 stepped in and gave a little bit more of context, or not context, but it has a good comment about that made me start to think a little bit more. Um, his thought was, with age comes patience. He says, I'm a better carpenter now that I'm in my now than I I'm a better carpenter now than I was in. I can't talk. Let's start over. He says, I'm a better carpenter now than I was in my 20s, not because I have more knowledge and better tools, but because I can tolerate the time it takes for the glue to set up. But even still, I find return trips to declamp and finish a project tedious because it's the initial wonder of a new idea that's so thrilling. At first, it's all free thought and creativity. Later, it's all sanding and painting. I would argue that the knowledge that the glue needs time to set up is knowledge that you didn't have in your 20s. Or maybe that's not, maybe the idea is more along the lines of what you just said was not because of the knowledge and better tools, but I think that number one, patience is a tool. Number two, that glue setup time is part of the knowledge that you didn't have or you didn't appreciate in your 20s. I feel very close to that. I was the kid who would glue and screw every joint in every project I ever worked on because I just didn't have time to wait for the glue to set. And lately, when I'm building furniture, I don't necessarily do that. I'm much more inclined to just glue and let it sit. And it's because I'm aware of, number one, I don't like using the screws generally. I think they take away from some aesthetics of the finished piece. And number two, they're just a pain in the butt to deal with, especially in hardwoods. You're more likely to split the wood than do any actual good. So the glue is good enough. And three, I enjoy now the patience of taking my time on the project. I don't need to build a dining table in a day. Whereas in my 20s, I definitely was that guy. Like, let's just go get it done. Whereas now I get to enjoy smaller increments and smaller little bits of pieces as I go. So I get what you're saying. But there's also there's another similar statement, or a statement that feels familiar to that section of your comment is you don't know what you don't know. And I think that part of starting any new task, whether it's in your field or not. So for instance, I have two new end tables I need to build. I've built the prototypes, but I need to get the cherry wood and build them out of cherry. I'm not going to be constructing them the same way as I did. Those were just pocket holes and pine. I'm not going to be using pocket holes. I'm going to be using mortise and tenon. And it's going to be a different build process. And so I've not done that before. Not true. I haven't built these particular end tables before. So there's steps involved in these particular things that aren't familiar to me, or they're not familiar in that one context. And so I don't know what I don't know yet. I haven't built them yet. I don't know how they're going to be built. But with time and experience, I'm in my mid 40s. I've been building stuff my whole life. I have a pretty good guess, right? I have a pretty good idea of what's going to be involved. I could probably draw plans from memory or from scratch without being too far off from the final product. And I have a good thought process on how I'm going to achieve each step of the way. I know how I'm going to make my mortises. I know how I'm going to make my tenons. I know what glue I'm going to use. So on and so on and so on. In your 20s, or maybe in your teens or whatever, maybe in your 40s, if you just started building stuff, you don't know these things yet, and so it's all a mystery. And I would say that there's no difference between who I am now and who I was then. The only difference is that institutional, or that knowledge of that discipline that allows me to be more patient. It's not that I'm more patient than I was in my 20s. I'm absolutely not. It's that I have more knowledge of everything. Life, people, my craft, my whatever, that allows me to be less temperamental, which I guess is the same thing as being more patient. But it's not really about patience for me. It's about the understanding that there's time, right? I'm not, this isn't a race, right? I'm going to build some end tables when I build some end tables. I'm not racing somebody to get a thing done but whatever, they'll get done. They'll step through them. And I think that is a type of knowledge. Patience is a type of knowledge. It's a knowledge that is born out of experience, practice, understanding. It's a particular type of knowledge that you can learn, and it isn't necessarily tied to age, like at all. Maybe I'm wrong, but for me, internally, it feels like I've learned patience through a larger understanding of life, the universe, everything, whatever. Not I've become more patient. I don't there's still plenty of things I'm not patient about. And I think that it just comes down to I don't fully understand those things. So I don't have a framework to build patience off of. Does that make sense? Is patience a skill? Do you need to practice it to get better at it? That's a good thought. I'm going to go think about it. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's 1,000 plus little things happy, successful people do differently. We are learning 19 quick tricks to feel better instantly. Number 3 is call a close friend. Sometimes a quick conversation with someone you care about is just what you need to boost your mood. If I call you on your phone unannounced, it's an emergency. I don't call anybody, ever. Like, calling, I would text my dog's veterinarian if I could. Like, I don't want to call people, ever. Don't call me. I mean, you can call me. People can call me. But chances of me picking up, fairly slim. If you text me first, I'll pick up for sure. But calling friends? Calling on friends, I'll do. And I do frequently do that. At least I try to.